I'm not an art guy, so I don't look, it's a painting. You know? Like the Mona Lisa don't do that for me, man. First of all, it's a dude. So it's a dude. I mean, what are we talking about? Am I wrong?
No, you talking about the Mona Lisa?
Is the Mona Lisa and it a dude?
No.
The Mona Lisa is a dude. John, am I tripping? I'm tripping. Yes. No, man, wait a minute. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Off the Bench. Of course, I'm DeMarcus.
I'm Ty.
And as y'all can see, we have two beautiful ladies here with us, some special guests, friends of the show, friends off the show too as well. Yes. Gonna come in here to, basically give us a part two of what we talked about last episode about anxiety in sports, but we're gonna actually go a little deeper into anxiety, mental health, depression, a little bit more of that. So what I want to do first, let the ladies introduce themselves. So on my right first, I got Phaedra, and then right next to Phaedra, we got Erica. So ladies, tell them about yourself a little bit.
Well, I'll go first. I'm Erica Mack. I am a registered clinical social work intern, and that just means I'm pre-licensed with the state. I want to put that out there as a disclaimer. I have been in counseling for over 16 years and in private practice for the last 2 years. My population is mainly children ages 8 to 88.
Yeah.
We all
are kids. We are kids.
Not just kids, but adults as well. Yeah. So that's the range in the population. And with that population, there comes a variety of different challenges. So pretty excited to be in this season of practice.
Nice. 16 years?
Almost. Well, a little bit longer than
I feel like 2 years.
Well, I mean, we have to count, I was in the military for, almost 14. So, and in that, there's, the life skills, the transitioning from civilian to military, and then a transition back from military back to civilian. So
that's good. It's another whole layer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So my name is Phaedra. I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I have been, 5-6 years. I own a private practice called Greenhouse Counseling, and Erica and I work together, and we see 8 to 88.
Right.
Really, honestly, probably all the way down to maybe our youngest client has been like 5 or 6.
Right.
I specialize with women in trauma. I also really love to help couples. That's my fun population. Most people don't like couples because it can get crazy, but I love it. I really do like to see marriages and relationships be restored. Yeah. And not just that, even with families. I've worked with relationships with mothers and daughters and siblings. And so all of that is really, I just like to see people restored back to life. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, ladies, I want to thank y'all, of course, for coming on. I know we've been trying to get this put together for a little while here. So basically what we did, just to kind of bring y'all, forward on what we talked about last week. Last week, we really, had more of a emphasis on just the anxiety that you have from being in sports. Played a little video, a little sound bite, basically talking about a collegiate player in his moment of his highest anxiety point in his career. And so what, me and Ty talked about, we wanted to have y'all on because we know y'all can really talk about, how to get help, some kind of like the signs of some high anxiety moments, some depression moments, and then of course, how important mental health is, not only as an athlete, but just as a person in general. Like you were talking about seeing people have that comeback or breakthrough from what they're dealing with. So what I kind of want to do, I want to stay with the sports first, and then we'll kind of transition to more of just an everyday living.
Okay.
So, when it comes to sports and the anxiety that you deal with from sports, what do you think would be some contributing factors to that? Dealing with, with the people that you've dealt with in your career?
As long as y'all don't ask me specifics about teams and stuff, I think I can answer these. So I never really played sports. My experience has been, I tried out for track because I was really fast, and then they put that thing on my back and told me to run, and I was like, never mind. I'm just gonna stick with academics. But my younger brother, he's played all my life, Little League on up to college at UCF, and then my kids play sports. And from what I know, there's about anxiety and how that looks with them, and how even working with athletes before, a lot of it is just like a lot of mental, like the thoughts, like what are you telling yourself before you get up to bat, like you know, and then also the pressure that you can feel from parents and from teammates. So really working with them on like what are some things I can do to calm myself, and how can I change my thinking, and also what expectations do I have about this? I don't think we stop and ask ourselves, what am I even telling myself, and where am I trying to go with this? You know, I'm making this a big deal, and why? Like, you know, so really just kind of getting to the root of the why is a huge thing.
So I was the cheerleader that actually understood what was going on, be it basketball and football. Okay. So, and then I also ran track. So I participated in sports. So I understand all about the anxiety. What I would hope that those listening and the viewers can take from this is we really have to like make the connection between the mind and the body, because that's a big thing. Like what Phaedra was saying, what we think, but then the body also responds to that. Okay. So being able to notice, because before I even think anything, sometimes I may have like this desire to move my hands, or my heart may be beating faster. Okay. You know, and then that plays into I'm nervous. And so now I'm thinking about that, because we know there is a mind-body connection. So it's really important to kind of understand that. And in the work that we do, we talk about mindfulness. Okay. And so that's putting the two together, but then giving yourself the skills. Okay. So now you're able to know, okay, I'm nervous. Because I remember running track and not trying to false start. Yeah. Okay. Because you're anticipating
the whistle or the
gun.
Shot.
You're anticipating a gun, and there were some false starts, but then it goes back to. But not only that, I was really small. I was the smallest person on the team. Okay. So then when the other team gets there, I'm like, I already know these girls are faster than me.
Gotcha. So you start. So now yourself that,
I've already psyched myself out. Okay. Because of that. And, you know, we're already in a performance-based society. So now it's about performance. So I've added this additional pressure to myself. And what does that do to my body? Normally, I'm probably going to be tense. So I'm not going to be relaxed. For anybody who's done any kind of sports, you have to be relaxed and loose. So definitely bringing back that mind-body connection and making sure that all of our athletes understand that that's a real thing.
Yeah. So as far as like for the mind-body connection, you know, you said the nervous twitches or, you know, whatever you might go through as parents, you know, you have your kid there at home, you know, might be stressing at home, might be stressing at work. I mean, if they have a job, might be stressing at work, might be stressing, you know, through school, and then now through sports. So they're just 24 hours of just stress. Like as a parent, how do you see that, and how do you know, point your kid into the right direction for help for it?
Well, as far as I guess my experience with my son having ADHD and kind of having to come to that like understanding of, okay, this is what's going on, and it's not like he just doing stuff on purpose.
Yeah. And some triggers.
Right. Yeah. I think getting him help, and then also being open to you learning. I think we both deal with like parents, and I always tell Erica primarily sees the children in our office, and I'm out from my experiences with children and parents. You can never just treat the child. Gotcha. You also have to treat the parent, and so having them involved in the education and what's going on. Okay. And the same thing is we call it somatic work, where we kind of are dealing with what's going on in the body, because we don't pay attention to our bodies a lot. We don't know, like, you know, like why our hands are sweating. We just start wiping our hands, right?
Yeah.
And
Different
so
signs that your body's telling you
correct.
something's wrong.
What does that mean? Because mine sweat like all
I'm
curious.
Yeah.
Well, I got the sweaty palms too, but I'm like, is that a bad thing?
Well, no, it's not. But I think our body tells us, like, that's the way God made us.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
Our body tells us what's going on, but we often ignore it.
Gotcha.
We just don't pay attention to our neck tensing up until I say, you know, hey, you guys, like, close your eyes and pay attention to your neck or all the places of your body where you're tensing up. And then you start saying, oh, okay, let me relax.
Yeah.
But we don't know. So teaching children that, teaching parents that, and also letting go of the stigmas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stigmas around being weak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why we ignore ourselves too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So is that what
Right.
you see?
That's a lot of what I see. The other part too is parents.
Okay.
A lot of times parents may be living through
That's
their
what I was about
child's
to ask.
performance.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask.
And
Yeah.
so now there's this additional pressure from the parents, but not only that, them also understanding that the child's level of performance is it's necessary for them to celebrate all of that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so often it's, well, if you don't do well, then it sometimes children have a tendency to equate that with love or acceptance.
Yeah.
If I don't perform well,
Yeah.
then I'm not loved.
Gotcha.
And then what I tell all my parents is you're the barometer.
Okay.
So your child is going to respond to you based on what you do, not just what you say. You know, we all grew up on do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
But children
Yeah.
are going to mimic and they're going to respond based on your reaction. So even if they missed the field goal or they missed the goal or whatever the case may be, your response is going to speak volume. So like, you know, Phaedra was saying, to pay attention to your child, but also pay attention to yourself. Am I adding additional stress to what my child is doing or to this? And especially for parents out there that are the parent that's on the sideline, that's over coaching the coach.
Yeah.
Y'all know.
I was just about to speak on that because I coach basketball and I train basketball players, male and female, and I've noticed that a lot of times, young men and women, the reason why they're even there is because that's the moment of, bonding time as they see it. So that's why
that should not be the only bonding
like I was telling
time.
Ty, that's what made me even come up with this conversation is because like I see it all the time where you can literally just tell like every time a kid makes a move in practice or training, they're looking at their parent.
Yeah.
Am I getting validation from you?
Yes.
Or even though I'm getting correction from coach, I still need correction from you because this is the moments that you show me love.
Right. Exactly.
It's when we're doing sports.
Exactly.
And doing well in sports.
And doing well in
Yeah.
sports. And I think like you just talking about, Eric, it points back to the parents' experience with sports.
Right.
Maybe they didn't have a good experience. Maybe things didn't work out the way they wanted. So they kind of drill that into their kid. And so the kid, to get that, that love, that feel of accomplishment, that I need to, kind of do well in sports to have that relationship with my parent, male and female, because it's both sides.
Yes.
Especially like if you're talking about single parent.
Yes.
So kind of going to that, like, do y'all deal with a lot of more, family, or is it single parents, or a combination of everything that y'all kind of dealing with when it comes to mental health?
It's a combination.
Definitely a combination.
The hardest I think has been I have worked with some single moms, and really to take into consideration, especially single moms that are active, they have active kids in sports.
Yeah.
I don't know how they doing it.
Really?
It's very, I mean y'all know football, like you got practice almost every day sometimes depending on the coach.
Especially the age group too you playing
right.
with.
So and then some of them are playing, multiple sports, or they got two kids playing different sports. So it's difficult. And then because they still go to school, they still got homework, so they have the added, academic stressors along with that. So yeah, I think we deal with multiple, and sometimes we deal with, situations where the dad is not as so they're co-parenting, but mom is still doing the most, or dad is still doing the most. So
you have that impact on the kid. So when it comes to grades, like I say, you just No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when it comes to the grades, like I said, how much of an impact are you seeing that in the families that you're dealing with? Are you seeing a lot of high anxiety grade kids, or do you see high stress kids because of school and having to perform? Because I know growing up, there was a buddy of mine. He's part of the Asian community. And like I remember, how his parents would talk to him and treat him when it come to his grades and what the effect it had on him. Now, of course, at that time, like you said, growing up, I ain't know that was mentally damaging him. Or, what I'm saying? I'm thinking, his parents is hard. They're a little too hard for me. I don't want to come over here, because I don't want to ask him about my grade. Because my grades ain't nowhere near his grade. So, I didn't think of that, but looking back on it, how much, I ain't gonna say damaging, but how concerning can grades be or academics be for kids too?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I work with that age group, I've worked more with the middle school to high school. Unfortunately, because, and I don't want to say because of, but there is the recreational league, especially at middle school, because there aren't any football, especially here in Pensacola. There isn't an opportunity for our kids to participate in school football at the middle school level.
Right.
Yeah. When you go, especially Santa Rosa County, they don't have middle school sports at all. So the middle school sports we have here, you have to branch outside of your school to do it.
Right.
So it's a lot of, like you say, summertime, or just you got a football team, you come play.
Right.
You go play random games places.
What I have seen, unfortunately, is there doesn't seem to be the same level of discipline when it comes to academics, because I think there's that disconnect because it's not really happening at school.
Yeah.
So your coach at school is not really going to say, oh, you can't play in this game because of your grades, because the team is not at the school. So I have seen the opposite, where kids still play, but their grades may be suffering.
I've seen that too. Yeah.
And I think that's kind of unfortunate, because I'm working with these kids who, they want to go D1, and I'm talking to them like, well, how do you think Nick Saban wants someone on his team that's getting D's and F's? So the guys that are at these schools and ladies that are at these schools, they are student athletes. They have to be. So that means you're going to have to get your academics up. And that becomes a challenge to kind of get them to see that, because they're looking at what's happening outside, and they're looking at the guys on TV, and they want to go to the NBA. And I'm having to go back and say, well, heaven forbid something happen and you don't make it. What's going to be the backup plan? But of course, we know at middle school, there is a real thing with this prefrontal cortex. This is the front part of our brain that's not completely developed. That's where rational thought takes place.
Gotcha.
And at the middle school level,
it's hard for them to do that.
Right. Yeah. It's hard for them to kind of see long term.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's more of focus on
it's
right now versus what can happen 10 years from now.
Right now. It's definitely the right now.
Okay.
Which is why it's so important for parents to do that kind of thinking for them.
Gotcha.
Yes.
And I come from a trauma.
There's some parents out there say, I let my kid think for themselves now. Be careful when you talk about parents that like to have these free thinking children.
I know, but unfortunately their brains are not at that. I really think like our brain, all the way to 25. That's when it's fully developed. So, you have these young kids making these decisions. Yeah, we ain't gonna go all the way there.
Right.
And it's like, I'm still teaching parents that. So we have this thing called the what I call the lizard brain. It's that part of your brain that's very kind of fight or flight, basic, what we kind of start out with. Okay. And so if I'm a child that skins my knee, like this, let's say this is my brain with my prefrontal cortex, my thinking part on, I'm the adult, right? Or I'm a child that skins my knee and I'm like this. So I'm in fight or flight. Okay. And then I have a parent that's also like this all the time.
Got you.
So what I teach parents is, you have to be the one to teach your child how to do this, how to bring that thinking brain onto on track. Like, how do so what kind of things can I do? Now I might initially be like, oh my gosh, like Your leg is backwards,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
Gotta accept.
Right.
Okay, so you got a backwards leg.
Right.
Now let's come up with a strategy on how to fix the backwards
Right.
leg. Yeah.
But I can't stay here.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what things do I teach my child to get to be emotionally regulated?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So am I teaching my child to deep breathe and relax and watch your thinking? You're gonna be okay. Let's but when you don't grow up in that environment, because let's say I'm a parent and I come from trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't taught any of those skills,
Mhm.
right? And so my child is probably going to be an offshoot of me, right?
Mhm.
Until
Mhm.
somebody learns different,
Gotcha.
and then we can change that, our DNA.
Gotcha.
So mine is about football. So like, with everything that's, football is trying to do to protect, the brain and CTE and stuff like that. How do y'all tell parents, that on the fence about it, like, playing at a younger age? You just said like the brain doesn't develop until 25, but now you got like kids getting concussions and stuff like that. Like if somebody's on the fence about, playing football for their kids, how do you do that?
That's hard. Me as a parent, my child ain't doing it. But
Yeah.
I mean, my brother played, but I saw my brother get, like he played defense
Mhm.
and he still got concussions. I remember seeing him at the game and like got knocked out. He got like sideswiped, and I was like, I couldn't breathe for a moment also. So what I'm just like, we gonna stick to soccer, which also can be dangerous too.
Yeah.
I saw.
They trying to hit the ball. They headbutt each other. So
Right.
So
So I
really,
say
any
stop.
sport, yeah.
But
I do see a lot of parents do revert to soccer, or I know now they're basically, have a league where they're playing flag all the way up to middle school now
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And they trying to
So-
make an Olympic sport too.
Yeah.
So they trying to
that's
really
cool.
to make it, even for adults now, that less contact opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. One thing I want to say, and this is for therapy in general,
okay.
we're not telling people what to do. That's also a misnomer that we're telling people what to do or we're giving advice. We try to stay away from that because we all have people that give us advice. How often
we
do
get
we
that
take
all the
it?
time.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay, my friend said,
probably
yeah, you
10% of the
did tell
time.
me that. Right.
Yeah.
So the idea is that we're looking at behavioral change or thoughts or patterns of thinking.
Got you.
So with this scenario, it will be my job to help the mom look at the pros and cons
Got you.
and weigh the risk.
Okay.
But ultimately, that's the
their
decision
decision.
that they have to make.
That's best for them.
But
Give them the
just
most
understanding these are the risks.
Yeah.
And this is what we have to deal with. Now, I have had a parent that made the decision, my child is not going to play this season. Like, we're taking the season off.
Okay.
And it caused a ripple in the relationship because that was like, no. This is
I got you.
like,
Kid
we're
must-
on a roll
Kid
here
he must
with
be performing pretty good then.
we're on a roll with our skill development and this and that and scheduling and so it was like we can't take a season off, like and so but finally they did come to some common ground based on the research, based on the studies and the risk, but that was a rough patch.
Got you.
In the beginning, because I mean I can only imagine as a dad, my son is doing well and you're talking about us not playing, like what's happening here, right?
I got plans to go pro.
Right, exactly.
So we
got plans.
We got plans, right?
We ain't put on the wall.
Right.
We're going to the NFL. So
right.
So that part translates to this. How important is environment then?
Yeah.
Extremely important.
Okay.
Extremely important. In school, we call it PI, which is person in environment.
Okay.
So you cannot just look at the person.
Okay.
You have to look at them in the environment. The environment is huge, which ties into the discussion that you had last time about male, female, and transgender.
Yeah.
And when we get to that, environment plays a huge role in all of that. So, especially when we're talking about anxiety.
Yeah.
Because like Phaedra was saying, we have our nervous system, and we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down. But then we have the sympathetic, which is our fight or flight.
Okay.
And in an environment where that has been continually stimulated, I like to use the example of paper tiger. My nervous system can't tell the difference between a real tiger and a paper tiger.
Okay.
Because this system has been overstimulated.
Oh, okay.
And because our nervous system hasn't had an opportunity to rest or to slow down, which is why deep breathing is so important, because it gives that nervous system a chance to kind of reset.
So it's always, so in your body's mind, I would say, it's always like cold
It's
red.
on.
It's cold red all the time.
It's right,
Always
because
fight, yeah.
it's almost like I'm being hyper vigilant, because I don't know when I may need to fight or flight,
Gotcha.
because this system has been overstimulated.
So what kind of, I guess, advice or, steps would you give somebody that's dealing with that type of hyper, environment? How does a person like that get through that, that's trying to just make it, through each day, let alone play a sport? What would be some steps you would think you need to tell that person?
Yeah. I think it's harder for kids because if the parents are not willing to make changes,
Gotcha.
they have the most power as far as the environment is concerned. Yeah, so I think that like if the parents are willing to participate in figuring it out, it's really learning how to understand what's a paper tiger versus what's a real tiger. So that's my first job as a therapist, to start really asking questions to say, so tell me more about that.
Gotcha.
And to help you come to this understanding, okay, so that's actually, maybe I'm thinking too black and white. Maybe I'm thinking in extreme. So maybe that person didn't really mean, like, maybe that wasn't betrayal.
Gotcha. Okay.
Maybe they was just thinking about something else. Yeah.
The fine details of what they're actually going through to help them see it more clearly.
So it's really changing the way you perceive the world. So it's a little bit more than just changing behaviors. We really try to figure out, like, to help you figure out what is that negative thought or that negative belief system that I hold. So, cause my whatever I believe in is what I'm gonna do. I might say, oh, I know I'm good enough, right? Or I know I have enough, but my moves and my actions don't say that. So it's really getting to like understanding what's the real, what do I really believe in? I say I trust God, but like I'm not making moves like I trust God.
Gotcha.
So we try to get to the real core foundation of what our beliefs really are, to help realign them to what truth, what we really want to believe in.
Okay. All right. So let's transition now into, we were talking about last episode. We were talking about, the impacts of a male versus a female versus a transgender, athlete.
Okay.
So in your experiences between the two of you, have you had experience with any transgender persons when it come to any type of anxiety, depression, or mental health?
Not in therapy, one-on-one therapy, but there were a few students in middle school who were in that process.
Okay.
And it was challenging. It was more challenging for those around the student. So that's when I kind of go back to the person in environment, because the environment was having to, make some adjustments to be more accommodating. One of the things that I would like for us to be very careful when we start looking at male, female, and transgender is to not, I want to say, look at the anxiety and the environment, because anxiety is anxiety. But it's also it'll be very important for us to look at how that person is responding to the environment. So we already know sports is already a male dominated area. It's been that way for a very long time.
Yeah.
So anxiety for a male is going to look very different than anxiety for a female.
Yeah.
And then anxiety for someone that's transgender.
Gotcha.
Because of the nature of sports in general. So we start there. But then also how that person responds to anxiety is going to be different. I would be inclined to say that men or males may be better at masking because of the masculinity factor in sports. And then, and Phaedra may correct me if I'm wrong, but and females may be better at managing and maybe some masking as well.
Okay.
So if you look at males and females and how they're going to interact, now think about someone who's transgender.
Gotcha.
Not only are they in a position of performance based, but now they have all of the personal.
Got the mixture.
They have the mixture of the personal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to impact them in a completely different way.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't change the level or the intensity of what may make them anxious or them being in an anxious state, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Because just me and Ty have talked about it briefly. You know, there's been some moments in sports where you've seen, you know, people that are transgender athletes, and they're, you know, transitioning into
right
same sport, but just like I said, at a different caliber now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely does weigh a lot, and then I think also like the social media aspect of it all too.
Goodness. Yes.
I know it plays a huge role in not only how athletes see themselves in general, but just how to deal with the adversity that they deal with from that sport.
Right.
So I think it can be, you know, hard a lot of times for just athletes in general.
Yeah.
So,
I have had some transgender clients one-on-one in therapy, and I don't necessarily think anxiety. Like I think anxiety is anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that depending on the person's environment, they family support, lack of support, it can really look the same.
Okay.
You know, if they have a lot of support, and, you know, they might not feel as much pressure or anxiety around it, like depending on the people's acceptance around them. But many of the people that I've worked with, they had already transitioned fully too. Okay. So it wasn't as easy to tell unless they just told you.
Okay.
So yeah. And then as far as just how therapy has looked, it's been the same. It's just people with problems.
You know, identifying the problem and you know, figuring out a way to, you know, work through it, basically. Okay. So now mental health, you know, I know that's been a huge, I even told Ty that I wasn't even really big on that. I had to re-educate myself on that, how important it is, because just myself being an athlete and how I've mastered a lot of things growing up playing sports. But I've also, you know, I think it helped me become the man that I am, you know, from playing sports.
Yeah.
So when it comes to just mental health in general, like how important is that for just a person in general? Like how important is that their mental health is, I guess, in the best standing they can have it. I mean, I know it's not perfect, not a perfect way to be, because the different flows and, you know, ups and downs and valleys of life. But how important it is to have a good mental health?
I think it's extremely important. I think with sports, it can be a heightened level of emotion also. So just seeing my kids play and seeing other kids, like people breaking down and or not acknowledging certain things, is like you can feel bad if you strike out. That's okay. Like you disappointed, but to not even want to acknowledge it. I have a question for you. Why do you think you didn't really acknowledge it with sports?
I would say probably just because I was so infatuated on just being great. So I it's one of those under the rug things. Like, I feel something. I don't know what this is.
Right.
I feel something, but I don't really have time to address it right now.
Sound like you're masking it.
Come on, Ty.
Learn that today.
Ty, come on, Ty.
You said how you looked at me, John. Sound like you're masking. I don't know how you just look me up and down like that. Yeah, you see that, man? But no, like for real though, that's just me, because, you know, I was one of those players where, like, I wanted acceptance not only from my teammates, but from my coaching staff, because, you know, growing up, like my dad, you know, he was in my life, but our relationship wasn't the very best as I wanted it to be. And I had my stepdad who was trying to give me everything and be that solid foundation for me, but I kind of like wrote him off as a kid, because like I'm like, man, I don't want that from you, I want it from him.
Right.
So like I'm like, all right, the better I do in sports, maybe that'll grab my dad's attention. And then going through the sports, and every time, you know, anytime I would fail, it hit me hard. But like in my mind, it's just because I want to be so great. It's not mental issue that I have or anxiety that I
Yeah.
have. So that's why I never really addressed it. But now as an older man, I realized looking back on that played a huge role in my life as a young man.
I
so
think
it's
that's
very, and it's very difficult
Yeah.
too in sports to be able to have those conversations, especially back when I was a child.
Yeah.
Now there's more
open.
conversations.
Yeah.
There's more podcasts. There's more,
Yeah.
education going on a daily basis about how to deal with this and recognize it.
Yeah.
Like you were just talking about.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, that one it is like, hey man, rub some dirt on that and keep it moving.
Oh, they
Right.
still doing that.
Right.
It's still like, I feel like it's still a level of that's not appropriate to be
Right.
crying out there. Like,
of
get it
course.
together. Yeah.
It's because like that's how we're at the age now where we're coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we seen instead of like taking the time out and like going up to the kid and be like, yo, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Right.
Pulling you to
Yeah.
the sideline, yo, what's going on? Like
Yeah.
why are we not
Yeah.
getting this? Talking through it.
Yeah.
It's still the same, like you said, it's still the same thing. Put some dirt on it and go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
I
have.
think-
Go ahead.
I think like the more this, taking time out to understand, why the kid is doing this and why the kid is doing that,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna get better. But as far as right now with our generation, I think it's still the same thing.
Yeah, it's still a lot of it the same type of
Yeah.
mindset.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about parents and children, but I think you brought up a great point about what I heard was kind of a bit of people pleasing.
Mm.
And I think that coaches, we talk about parents expanding our window of tolerance
Mhm.
by educating ourselves, being healthy. But I think coaches also,
Yeah.
that needs to happen with coaches. I think it starts with the coach understanding
Mhm.
and being able to do this.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times I think that, coaches serve as a parent,
Mhm.
as another
Oh,
parent.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So if y'all can become more mentally well,
Mhm.
then you can spread that on to kids. Because I know there are a lot of coaches. My brother grew up. He still keep in touch with some of his little league coaches.
Yeah. I still keep. It's a group of, my guys that I played basketball with in high school. We still get up and hang out with our coach all the time. I work at Washington with my coach that coached me.
See,
So there's some lasting impacts and relationship that you've developed through all of that kind of
yeah,
Yes.
dirt and masking.
yeah,
as we're developing and
Yeah.
we're being taught to do. But it's real though, because like I said, just like the movie In the League of Their Own, he's like, there's no crying in baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're talking to women,
Yeah.
Right.
that have emotions. And
Right.
everybody has emotions
Right.
when you're in a sport that's not going your way.
right.
So I think that just, furthermore tells everybody that when those moments are happening and there's high anxiety and there's some depression and some, feeling sulking on yourself,
Right.
a lot of times people tell you get over it. But I think
Yeah.
moving forward, we need to do better with it.
I have my own feelings about that. Like we're not really getting over anything, and I'm on mission to help people understand we go through and how we go through helps us grow and become better mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Because if you think about a bridge and you're going over, the whatever is under is still there.
It's still, yeah.
But it's how we process and how we go through.
Okay.
That's what helps us get to growth.
Okay.
So I like this whole analogy. This right here.
Yeah,
So with this,
so
so
we doing that from
yeah,
now on.
I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Like it's time. Are you doing this? Are you saying this? What we doing?
So-
Field goal. What we doing?
So as a coach, you're in the moment. So you're always like this. How do you bring this down during game time then?
In the heat of the
In
moment.
the heat of the moment to, like you said, bring your athlete back down here so he can focus instead of thinking of the last play or the last, situation.
Yeah.
I think you have to be mentally well.
Mm.
I think you do that like by making sure personally you're well.
Yeah.
And so how am I going to deal with situations? Even just as a parent, like things are happening all the time.
Mhm.
Am I popping off and being crazy?
Yeah.
Or am I able to take a moment to say, okay, get it together, Phaedra,
Mm.
before I respond?
Mhm.
Right. So a lot of times we're talking about reacting versus responding.
Mhm.
I want to be able to respond and not just be reacting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so that looks like even during the game, we teach people a method called the container.
Okay.
Are there certain times I need to put things in a container to revisit later?
Oh, okay.
Right. So that I can emotionally regulate myself during the time. So even with kids, I do think it might be slightly inappropriate for a child to be slamming the baseball, you know,
knocking over the
yeah,
Gatorade,
crazy. And I'm like, I get you have emotions, and I'm not going to discount those, but it's not appropriate right now. Let's talk about it later. So, but if I'm a coach, I have seen teams where if the coaches are crazy acting, the kids are the same. They fighting in the dugout and stuff. And it's like, well, look at the coaches. It's the same with parents and children. Like it's like they're offshoot of what they, so like, I think coaches have to learn how to emotionally regulate and process things as well, because the kids are going to take that on.
Yeah, because like Erica was just saying, you know, a lot of young kids don't have the sports in their school. So I think just in my experience, you know, I spent a lot of time with my coaches outside of my parents. So a lot of my influence came from them. So a lot of my reactions, how I dealt with certain things, whether it be in school, out of school, or dealing with that sport, is because of when I'm learning from them. Because like I said, at that time in life, we're so visually learning more than we are understanding what's going on and why coach act that way. Because I know coach act that way because I turned the ball over. So obviously I did something wrong.
Correct.
And I'm trying to, I need to make corrections.
Correct.
So that way he don't yell at me.
Did you hear that? Obviously I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Because kids are sponges. So the coach is not taking responsibility for his behavior. So somebody got to take responsibility. So it's going to be me as a child. I did something wrong versus the coach just don't know how to act sometimes. He don't know how to respond, right? So 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 to answer your question, it's so important to know how to apologize.
Hold on now.
And take responsibility.
Apologize. I'm about to apologize.
I ain't apologize. No apologies in sports.
Some people just don't like to apologize.
They hate it.
Right.
To children. Yes. I apologize for my behavior, guys. That was not appropriate. I should have not. What I should have done, was I should have took a deep breath and relaxed and then came to talk to you, but I didn't, and I'm sorry.
Got you.
And that is how we make a correction, guys.
It is.
That's how we go from here.
Yes.
to here.
But that's how we teach.
It is. But I mean, coming on the flip side of sports, we get in. We get in, and when you're in, you're all in. That's definitely going to take some practice for coaches. So I will put that out there. That's not an easy thing to do when you're in the heat or in the heighten of the emotion or the game. But it is necessary because the kids are responding to, especially our younger kids. Now, when we get to, college and professionals, even then, you've seen, like, you know, Tom Brady take his helmet and throw it. It's not the natural response, but at the same time, you know, fans and other teammates know that person is emotionally invested in winning. But at the same time, there is a conversation afterwards to say, you know what, that probably wasn't the best way to respond. And then just being honest in that, and that, like what Phaedra was saying, that shows that emotional social growth that everybody needs to see, to come back and say, yeah, you know what, I didn't handle that the best way. Here's what that needs to look like, or what that should look like next time.
Gotcha. I want to go one more layer before we get out of here. How critical or how much impact have you seen, like, celebrities have on the younger kids and the adults that y'all deal with when it comes to anxiety, depression, and mental health? Have you seen a huge...
That what they say, the pendulum is starting to shift.
Okay.
Because again, we're still in this performance-based arena of society. Everything is performance-based. But the fact that more athletes are taking that step to say, you know what, I can't remember the tennis player's name, but when she came out and said, I'm not going to participate because of my mental health.
Miyazaki.
Yes.
She took off
when she took off, you know, because of her. Exactly.
You ain't playing tennis no more?
Right.
Hey, Brittany Griner, she just did it. She said she's taking 2 weeks off because of her mental health.
Right.
You don't like it.
Right.
You don't like it?
People don't like it. No, I'm for it.
Hold on. We need to spend a few more minutes on the podcast and find out what's going on with you. You can't be on both sides of the coin now.
Yeah, but that goes back to that emotional investment. Like I'm emotionally invested in you playing and what that does for me. And so, but it's slowly, it's slowly getting to the place where where we're starting to accept it more. And as more professionals do it, then our younger generations will start to see that it's okay.
It's normal.
It's normal.
That.
And you're right. And then we'll get to the other place where I'm a big advocate for is helping us understand our feelings. For so long, we don't, like you were saying, I don't know what this feeling is. But when we can identify a feeling, because I've learned, especially working in middle schools, that, it's anger. So teachers, counselors, they always angry. But a lot of times it wasn't anger. It was disappointment or it was embarrassment.
Okay.
So we have to be able to, especially for those that had just gotten in trouble in class, like, the teacher called you out. So you upset because you got in trouble and you got called out. So now you're embarrassed. But helping us be able to put the words and the terms for what that feeling is, because there was a study done and out of 3,000 people, the most we knew was happy, sad, and pissed off. But there's a whole level of other of feelings, and we have to be able to identify the feeling, because if I can identify it, I can also identify, like, where's this coming from? And like Phaedra was talking about, that core belief. Is this just for the now, or is this something that I believe all the time about myself or about my environment? So the more we do about working on our feelings, and the more our professional athletes and those that are in the public eye, even on social media, the more education, information, and the more spotlights we can put on it, it makes it more normal. It normalizes it to the point where we can actually help, and those who need help can actually get help.
Okay. So I got a question. So for somebody that's like what DeMarcus was going through younger, like they have this feeling, but they don't know what it is. How do you point them in the right place for the right position? So like he said, didn't know what this feeling is, but you don't want to go see a marriage counselor for this feeling when you're, having anxiety in sports. Like, how do you point somebody in the right direction?
That's kind of hard sometimes. I think depending on because we have to think about people's access to mental health or health in general, like financial access, can they get around?
Transportation, all that.
Yeah, all of that. Are my parents even going to acknowledge that mental health is a thing? Because that's the biggest thing I think with mental health is you can't see the stuff that's going on really until it's too late sometimes. Right. And then it's like, we see it and now you bad. Now you got a label. Right. Label. But one of the things as far as one resource I always use and I tell people to use is Psychology Today. You can use all these filters to filter out, what kind of insurance it is, whether it's Medicaid, United Health, whatever. You can make a preference between, like, do I want a Christian therapist? Do I want someone that deals with the LGBTQ plus community? That takes me a while sometimes. Do I want a Black therapist, whatever. So you can have all these filters in there and then referrals. So do you know other people? Can you get online and say, hey, I'm looking for somebody? Sometimes that takes you being brave. But people, you'll be surprised at how much support you'll get by just saying, hey, I'm looking for a therapist, asking for a friend, whatever.
Like my friends, going through some things. Like, who would you refer to?
Struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that's important because, like you say, just my own experience and dealing with kids now, like that's one thing that I'm trying to pay attention to is like, I know I want them to do well. Yeah. I want them to learn. I want them to develop. I want them to be, better men as they grow up. But I also got to remember, like I said, their environment. And I also look at who is in their ear and that stimulates them the most when it comes to how they respond to things.
Right.
Because that's the hardest part as a coach is how do I get through to your son versus your son versus your son when I see each one of you response to the same thing totally different. Yeah. And I see how it impacts your son on a whole other level because maybe you're just in his ear, about, hey, you missed the last bucket. So it's your fault we lost. Right. Because some parents will put that on a kid that it's your fault we lost. Right. Now, some kids can't take that and they just like, okay, this is my dad motivating me to be better next time. But a lot of kids that that can be detrimental to them for the future.
Yeah.
We hear it all the time
Yeah.
with, school shootings and other things
Mm-hmm.
where one of the core things I hear from when they start talking about the kid or the young man or young woman, who it was, they talk about what they dealt with as a child, and how they were bullied and how they were mistreated and how nobody really listened to them when they cried out about the situations they were going through.
Speaking of that, like, is anyone ever healed? So like, you might be going through something, you might be going through something with sport.
Look at you. I feel like you should have been a therapist.
Hey, John, we need to get us a couch in here, man. We start doing some therapy sessions on the podcast.
This is my thing.
Okay.
I think I take therapy and all that stuff very seriously. But like, is anyone ever healed? Like, somebody that's 16, was going through, something with sports, but 15 years later, they're 30, but they're still having this problem of, something that might have been sports related or might have been family related or something.
I like to say something to that. So I was told a story about this kid, forgot what happened, but his father told him, like every time he did something wrong or he made a mistake, he was like, okay, go take this hammer and these nails and go like, hammer the nail into the fence. And so he would do that. So finally one day his father said, okay, go take all the nails out. And he's like, okay. So he did it. He said, what's left? He's like, holes. And that analogy was said to say that like sometimes we react in ways and we cause damage, and we might go back and apologize later, but the holes are there. And so let's say these holes were made when I was 5, 10, 15 years old, and now I'm 30 and 40 years old. The holes, like I might be good with my dad, but the holes are there. So they do have to be repaired. Yes, the brain is malleable and is able to be, our DNA can be changed. Yes, I do believe that there's healing. I do believe that there are also scars. I think the scars remain so that we can also help other people, though, as a testimony. So the goal of therapy is, I'm not trying to take away all your scars so you forget things. I'm trying to help you to be in a place where you're desensitized, so you're not always at a heightened state of emotion when you think about those things.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? So yes.
Come back around.
Yes.
Yeah, gotcha.
And as far as what you said regarding the kiddos and how the parents respond differently, I wanted to say this earlier. It's so important for us to include the kids and ask them how they feel.
Okay.
So if you have a kid and they have, like, let's say they have a stepmom, a dad, and all these different people, and they responded differently, for you to say, well, how did you feel? Do you feel like it was your fault?
Okay.
And why?
Gotcha.
And then help them walk through it.
Gotcha.
And they'll come to a reasonable response because you'll ask them like, was it your fault?
Yeah.
So you can control all the things.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And they'll say, well, no, I guess I can't. Okay, so then what do you think is the real thing? Oh, well, sometimes I'm gonna make it and sometimes I'm not. Okay, I think that's right.
Gotcha.
They've come to that. All you did was ask questions.
Gotcha.
So I point back to you being healthy enough to be able to hold space for people, for kids. Can I be in a space where this kiddo is like taking on all this responsibility, and what questions can I ask him or her to help them get to this place where they realize, oh, actually it wasn't my fault. Like it was just, we win some, we lose some.
Yeah. Learn to get better. And then of course, next time you have the opportunity, try to have a different outcome.
Right.
If you can. Okay. I like that. All right. So we're gonna come to about the end of the podcast, man. I think this has been a great conversation. We got to have this more often for sure. Yeah. But what I want to do before y'all get out of here, tell the people where they can find you at. Okay. And then also if you wanted to give them other resources where they can go to kind of help, establish a relationship with a therapist or, good places for, education on the topics we talked about.
Or our website is www.ghcpensacola.com. Okay. You can go to the contact us place and you can put all your information in. We also have a phone number, which I don't know by heart, but Erica probably does.
I do. Yes.
I don't know by heart.
Our phone number is 850-665-0354.
Good job. Yeah. It's called Greenhouse Counseling. And if we don't have space or we don't fit and accommodate all your needs, we're definitely able to help point you in the right direction. Erica has more of the social work heart.
Okay.
And so she'll probably spend way more time with you on that. But, you know, I think that there's no one size fits all.
Okay.
So like sometimes like we have to point you into a place. I always tell people, if you go to a therapist and he or she doesn't work out for you, don't stop. Find somebody else. It's okay. Keep trying. It's not
not everybody cup of tea.
Yeah. You interview and you figure out what fits your needs, and we're not gonna. Healthy therapists are not going to be offended that you move on to somebody else. We're not all created equally. So I said healthy therapists are not going to be offended that you choose someone else. We want you to get healthy no matter where you go.
Right.
So.
Okay.
And as therapists, we have therapists.
I was about to say,
Yes.
I was about to ask that same question.
I want my therapist to have a therapist.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's healthy. And it's not because the misnomer is that we have therapy because of all the people that we see. Like, no, we're human. We're human too. And so it's healthy for us to be healthy and to stay healthy.
Got anything for we got here?
Nope. Great. I've been waiting on this.
This was fun. I like this.
Love it. Yeah.
Like we've been. I mean, I don't know how many episodes we've tabled this episode. Cause we gotta have Phaedra, we gotta have Erica on here because this is a conversation me and him been talking about for over a year.
Yeah. And when he first brought it up, I was like, no, we need to wait.
Yeah. So because we was like, we were gonna kind of wing our way through it, but like, nah, we don't want to do that. We want to have a good flow. You know, part one, then come in part two with y'all, and I think it's been an excellent conversation. I want to thank y'all for coming in and spending time with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Oh, can I put a plug in real quick?
Go ahead. All day.
So I have a podcast called I Get Better.
Okay.
It's all one word, I Get Better podcast, and we're on Apple and all the things. And so it's me and my one of my good friends. She's also a therapist.
Okay.
And so we talk about lots of
put
stuff.
That in the description. Down below. Everybody watches on YouTube. Of course, on Facebook, we'll put it down. We'll put it in the comment section too as well, so people can watch that.
So it might help with some of these same types of questions.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Oh, one more thing before we got here. It always comes to me right before we leave.
Yeah.
So real quick, we ain't gonna spend a lot of time on it because we can have this for the third part if we need to. Because I know we've been talking about my experience. Like I said, you really love this topic. We talked about everybody's experience that you dealt with over your time that you've been 16 years. And I mean, y'all got over 20 years combined. Would you say the Black existence has been like harder than others? Or would you say,
as far as getting into therapy or accepting mental health?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. This is from just even going to school. There's not even a lot of Black therapists in our programs. Like there's and so right now one of the biggest things is I know a lot of Black people are wanting Black therapists so that they can also just have an understanding of our cultural needs without having to explain a bunch of things.
Right.
And so it's very difficult. I think we're still struggling with how we see therapy.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of, I think we had a grandmother that we were trying to get in and she finally came in, but she was just like, well, I don't really know what I need. Meanwhile, your husband just died, all of these people. And it's like, so it's a lack of understanding of even why we need therapy. And honestly, I've seen it in all different cultures.
Right.
I just think sometimes we are very, we have all these things as a Black race that we're trying to overcome already as far as stigmas are concerned. And so now you want me to go to therapy, which makes me look maybe even further vulnerable and weak. It's just a mind thing. So the more we talk about it, I think, and the more we normalize it, I think that is what's going to make it easier.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And to add on to that, mental health in the church.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole thing. That might be part 4.
That could be part 3/4. Follow us on Pinterest, Patreon for that. To see that exclusive interview. So, but ladies, thank you again as always. To everybody out there watching us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, make sure you follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the notification button so you know when the next video is coming out. Also comment down below, let us know what you thought about this episode, and we'll definitely do our very best to implement anything, conversation wise or changes wise on the next episode.
And like and share. You forgot that one.
Oh yeah, like
He was kind. I saw that man.
Last time he said more, he's like, usually you get this thing out. You struggle this time. I'm like, man, I got to remember all of it. So, but yeah, like and share us on all of our social media platforms would be listed down below in the description. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see y'all on the next one. Have a great day.
Hey.
Peace.